Congressman James Clyburn, Democrat of South Carolina, with us from the Capitol. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a great honor, sir. You are a veteran of the civil rights movement. I know that you actually met your wife in a jail cell protesting segregation. And you've never stopped fighting, appearing at protests even this weekend. Do you, sir, see what's happening right now as a fresh wave in the push for equality and civil rights?
Yes, I do. I really believe that that's where we are. We are on the threshold of some retrogression if we are not careful. As you probably know, I used to teach history. I used to tell my students all the time, we have to always remember that anything that's happened before can happen again. And that's why we study this, in order to make sure that we don't repeat these historical events, that we learn lessons from them so that we'll know exactly how to respond. And we should have learned some lessons from Emmett Till. We now see some similarities with Trayvon Martin. We should have learned some lessons from the civil rights activities of the 60s, and now we see the same kinds of demonstrations taking places in state houses and on various events across the country. We've got to really be very conscious of the fact that if we're not careful, we will really live some of those episodes.
Do you really believe, sir, that we are in danger of regressing that far back?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. Let's just look at what happened as we came out of the so-called historical Reconstruction and what happened in post-Reconstruction. If you look at the court decision that came in 1875, everybody talks about Plessy, but the Jim Crow laws of the 1880s and 90s came from a Supreme Court decision coming out of Louisiana in 1875. It was that decision that gave license to jurisdictions all over the country to come out with these Jim Crow laws. The Plessy decision of 1896 only established separate but equal. It did not establish these Jim Crow laws. So when you look at a voting rights case like we just got in Shelby, and you look at some of the other decisions that are being made on the heels of Shelby, we are in danger of reliving the same thing if we're not careful.
Now, I understand your leadership on this issue, but the president himself, as you know, spoke profoundly about race at the end of last week. But he said he does not want politicians to lead this particular conversation. Take a listen to what he said.
You know, there's been talk about should we convene a conversation on race. I haven't seen that be particularly productive when politicians try to organize conversations. They end up being stilted and politicized, and folks are locked into the positions they already have.
What's your response to what the president said?
Well, I don't disagree with that at all. I don't know that I want to be the one leading anything, but I really believe that the president is appropriate to jumpstart a discussion. I think the politicians in their various jurisdictions back in their communities ought to be out there jumpstarting. That's why I participated last Saturday in that rally on the State House steps in Columbia, South Carolina. That's why I wore that hoodie as I stood with two of my three daughters in order to jumpstart a discussion. And I might add, Martin, just this afternoon, the young man who organized that march in Columbia, South Carolina, who I'd never spoken with before, called me this afternoon, and we are going to be getting together when I get home this weekend, because my experiences could serve him well as a young 22-year-old feeling what happened with Trayvon could very well happen to him. So he may be the one to lead the discussion, but he certainly could benefit from my experiences and others of like mine.
I'm reminded of the words of Dr. Martin Luther King in 1967 when he felt provoked to speak about Vietnam, and he said, "Silence is now a betrayal."
That's exactly right. And Martin also told us in his letter from Birmingham City Jail that he was coming to the conclusion that the people of ill will was making a much better use of time than the people of goodwill. And he told us on that occasion that if we are not careful, we will relive some of these things. And he said that we of goodwill must move forward.
Congressman James Clyburn, we're grateful to you for joining us this afternoon, sir.
Thank you so much for